Hello there, we're back again for one more listening class. Today we're going to be talking about sentence completion task. This type of task is usually seen in section 4 of the test. It's going to be a presentation or a lecture on some academic context. The strategies to succeed in this kind of task is identifying keywords and paraphrases. We're gonna see this in detail during the exercise. Let's have a look. This is a typical sentence completion task. It was used in some previous IELTS exam. Well, if you have watched any of my previous classes before, you know my next question. What is the first thing we have to do before doing any IELTS task? Read the instructions. In this exercise, it says, write no more than 2 words for each answer. It means that if you write 1 word, it's good. If you write 2 words, it's great. If you write more than 2 words, it's gonna be incorrect. Even if the content of your answer is right, it's gonna be considered incorrect. So always pay attention to not miss any mark for not reading the instructions. The second thing you have to do is, we should analyze the questions very quickly. You have to know that the time for reading the questions is very short. That's why we need to optimize the time we have. So, you shouldn't read all the phrases in detail. Instead, you need to develop the ability to read the important words that bring the sense of those sentences. That's what we call keywords. Let's have a look at the beginning of the text. So, the title of this recording is Mass Strandings of Whales and Dolphins. You may struggle a little bit in this beginning because of vocabulary. Maybe mass strandings is not familiar to you. But ignore this, ignore what you don't know and focus on what you know. You probably know that whales and dolphins are sea creatures. Let's continue reading and try to understand what it's about. If you go to next sentence, next line, it's basically the repetition of the heading. Mass strandings. Situations where groups of whales and dolphins, so you see, this is basically the repetition of the heading, but then it brings new information. Swim onto the beach and die. So let's focus on some more common vocabulary. We have whales and dolphins, and then we have swim onto the beach and die. So the general idea of this recording is whales and dolphins that swim onto the beach and die. Just to clarify at this moment, you must know that mass in this context means a huge number, a big number. And stranding in this context as well means going out of the ocean. So that's the meaning. It's a huge number of whales and dolphins that leave the ocean to die on the beach. Let's have a look at the first question, which is question 31. When we read, common in areas where the blank can change quickly, right? So what we are looking for is what can change quickly. So start thinking about this context. We're speaking of sea creatures such as whales and dolphins that leave the ocean and die at the beach, and it is common in areas where the something can change quickly. So what could you expect this answer to be? First of all, it's certainly a noun. It doesn't make sense to be a verb or an adjective, adverb. We can think, is it speaking of some physical change? Or could it be the weather change? It's connected to the topic. Or could it be the temperature of the water? So you see, this is the mental processing you should start doing before listening to the recording. This is gonna prepare your mind to what's coming, and you know what to expect, or more or less you have a clue or where to go during the recording. Let's listen and see if we can get this answer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, with some of you about to go out on field work, it's timely that in this afternoon's session I'll be sharing some ideas about the reasons why groups of whales and dolphins sometimes swim ashore from the sea right onto the beach and, most often, die in what are known as mass strandings. Unfortunately, this type of event is a frequent occurrence in some of the locations that you'll be travelling to, where sometimes the tide goes out suddenly, confusing the animals.
Well, I hope that you have found that common in areas where the tide or the tides can change quickly. That's the correct answer. But here is one problem. In the recording, they don't say that the tide can change quickly. Instead, they say, the tide goes out suddenly. Can change quickly or goes out suddenly have the same meaning, but they are different words. And this is what we have to be prepared for when we do this type of task on IELTS. This is what we call paraphrases. So, you should never expect to listen the same words that you read. You should expect to understand the context first of the sentence you read and later the sentence you listen to. And then you try to find the word that makes sense to complete the sentence. Another point that is very important too is when you read common in areas where in the beginning of this phrase, the recording is frequent occurrence in some of the locations that you'll be traveling to, where sometimes the tide goes out suddenly. So you see that the word common and frequent occurrence have the same meaning. Where and after this we have in some of the locations. So after this point, your brain must expect that the next word is the correct answer. But it is not. They put something in the middle. Frequent occurrence in some of the locations, parentheses, that you'll be traveling to, and then the answer, where sometimes the tide goes out suddenly. They put this in the middle on purpose. And this is to test your capability to understand the general idea of that phrase and not focus on specific terms or specific words. This is what we call distractors. So you have to practice this. We need to develop identifying paraphrases and identifying distractors. So we don't write the answer, the first word that could make sense in the sentence. Instead, we wait, understand the general context, and then we identify what word will make sense. Let's try it. Now, we're going to listen to the rest of the recording, and you are going to answer to questions 32 to 40. Try to apply these techniques. Identify the keywords when you are preparing for listening. Then you look for paraphrases while you are listening. And finally, be very careful with distractors.
Now turn to section 4.